Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode number 179, and we have a very special guest returning to us. We have Coach Ron coming from 100 Days Peak Performance. You know what? Let me do that again. That was an awful introduction.
Oh, good, brother.
Coach Ron James. And Ron, what's the name of the company? How should I introduce you?
Well, it's Ron James Real Estate Coaching. I am a facilitator of the 100 Days to Peak Performance.
Okay, got it. Let's do that again. And second. All right, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode number 179, and we have returning to us the one, the only. We have Coach Ron James from 100 Days Peak Performance. Coach Ron, thanks so much and welcome back.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back, guys. I love the content. I certainly love the way you guys banter real estate as it should be. And I love that there's a real estate and a legal opinion kind of that get to be the salad, right? The mixture of what good content should look like, could look like, keep us productive and keep us out of, real estate jail.
Well, we like to have a couple different viewpoints, different perspectives on it. So we're so happy to have you back on this because you get to talk to so many people in the industry. So you have your own thoughts, opinions, you coach that, you teach that, but you get feedback from a lot of other people, what's working, what's not working. So please share with us today.
Oh, you're right, and I thank you for that opportunity. There is a lot of wisdom that I think get blurred by social media, and forums like this allow us to kind of flush out some decisions and opinions and allow people to form their own.
Yeah, and Ron, you go deep, right? Because like as a real estate coach, you have that one-on-one relationship with whoever you're coaching. So you get to peel back layers and really dive into their business and really understand, what's driving their revenue, what's working, what isn't, and how hard some of these top performers have to work to put deals together. And that's what we want to do today. We want to jump in, peel back those layers and really get to the meat on the bone, to the root of what's really helping drive performance in the market that we are in today.
Well, we should talk about, what this market is, or perhaps maybe isn't. This isn't, 2020 or 2022 when, everybody was making fun Benjamins. Like, they literally weren't dollars. They were fun coupons. Like you made so much money in such a short period of time and then just thought this will last. I'm a rock star. I'm going to go on forever. And then the market said, hold my beer. And here we are.
Right. The tide goes out and you see what everybody's wearing underneath.
Yeah, 100%. If we did a survey, if there was something that we could do something like that, you know, um, in people's experience, is it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years experience? How many people have had a listing that's lasted longer than 90 days?
Right.
Dare I say 6 months? We're going to lose a lot of people if we had hands in the air. How many people here have actually nurtured a 6 month listing who aren't rural? Like it's not a farm, it's not some very specialized property in the Muskokas at this point, but I'm talking residential, very, Mississauga, for example, at this point. Who's had a 6 month listing? And, how are you trained to manage a 6 month listing that's not selling?
Right. Do you panic? Do you push for too many price reductions? Or, do you explain to your seller that the landscape is such that you just have to expose the property longer? And do you hold out on price? I mean, these are, really important fundamental questions, but they go to the root of the issue of what we're facing out there in the market today.
Well, 100%. This gets somebody fans the flames on this. Back in the day before social media was even a thing, Facebook wasn't created, I'm sure. Zuckerberg was in grade school, we had Garth Turner. And Garth Turner, a columnist for The Sun at this point, he would say red light, green light the next day, and the market would respond just based on him holding cards up. Green light, red light, green light, red light. And now we have social media and everybody's Garth Turner. Everybody's got an opinion. This is what's happening with rates, and this is what's happening with the market, and this is what's happening with prices. This is what's happening across the board. And we become a great big ear. We suck it all in and we respond to all of those mixed messages and then kind of tell our sellers, I have no idea. We're flipping coins and guessing. And that's not what a seller wants to hear.
But Ron, I mean, that's, sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, it just seems like, the feedback I get, buyers out there, everybody's in a holding pattern because they think that there's some big event that's going to happen or some big announcement is going to happen at some point in time, whether it's from Carney, got a deal with Trump. So everybody, okay, the economy can start moving again, time to make a plan. And everybody's sort of waiting for that big triggering event or that green light or something that somebody's going to hold on. Who is that? And then, okay, let's go. But until then, it's just everybody seems to be in a holding, waiting pattern. Well, the rates might change, the market might change. I don't know if I'm going to have a job. What's inflation going to be? It's so much uncertainty. But like, there's nobody out there that's going to hold up that green card one day. It doesn't happen in an instant. It's just a gradual process, unless I'm missing something that's gone on in the last century.
I recognize that conversation, David. It is there is a lot of if you were fear. People have fear. Am I going to make the right decision at the right time? Am I going to miss the market? Am I going to capture the market? I can tell you, even with plus 44 years of real estate experience, can I tell you when the market's going to hit? Nope. My lovely bride sold a property that she owned, and we happened to sell it, at the very top of the market. She's been a realtor for plus 10 years. I'm 44 years at this craft at this point. It was a guess. It was a goof. We got lucky at this point. We don't have any crystal balls, believe it or not, with my bald head. We don't have it, right? Market timing is going to be market timing. It is, time the tide, and we can't. That said, I'm going to drive into a point that is quite interesting. My wife sells new construction, pre-construction homes, and they build a beautiful home, 2 different builders on the site at this point, and they've had dribbles and drabs. Like, she probably sold 20 units over almost a full year of service with this particular builder. Recently, they did a price haircut. Like, they came in and slashed their prices by like 200,000, threw in a finished basement, threw in, some sweeteners at the decor center, and they have been rammed every day. Their goal was, now here's where the trigger comes in. The goal was to sell 20 units in 1 month. That was the objective. And my lovely wife, kind of explained the plan, and I started to chuckle, and she's like, "What are you laughing?" And I'm like, "Well, you have a very specific ethnic neighborhood that you sell in. They're very much aware of you. You've been around there for a while. This is like the next phase. It's not like you're, launching and they don't know the brand. They certainly do. But at the same time, in order to put 20 units on the board, you're going to have to sell like 50, 60, 70. She's like, why? And I said, because these deals will fall apart. And sure enough, that's what happened. They wrote over 60 deals. They ended up with 20 at this point, because it was like, hey, guess what? You win, except for now we need the deposit check. Oh yeah, money. Can't do it. So they forfeit their place. And at the same time, they win. Hey, the builder accepted your deal. Yeah, we've changed our mind. And I'll just sidestep for a second. When it served us and we had a worksheet process, like we're talking an 8.5 by 11, the realtor coming in with their clients can barely fill out the content, and it's just your client's name, address, and telephone number, and you flubbed that. And they're going to make anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 just for filling out, 3/4 of an 8.5 by 11. And they can't. That makes me nervous. But at the same time, it was literally my offer on a napkin. And they've now continued that process. Worksheets are still prevalent on pre-construction right across the city at this point. It's a terrible tool. There's zero commitment. I buy today and change my mind tonight. Oh, well, I'm out. People say, well, we have a 10-year, 10-day cooling off period. Used to be in condos. Now it's in everything at this point. Yeah, I guess they could. But once you kind of say you've got it, you've signed your name and the paper's real, and you've got like a 60-page document sitting on your desk, it has a little bit more weight than a piece of paper that said, I promise to buy, you promise to sell.
Mhm.
Terrible
And
strategy.
And Ron, I mean, that has to do with buyer confidence above all, right? Like, I mean, I think when we measure buyer confidence, and I think a report came out from CMHC a couple of days ago, and it shows that buyer confidence is at an all-time low level. Like, it's absolutely crashing. And we see it on our residential side. We're seeing buyer remorse. And in fact, I think one of my agents reached out to you, David Korman, last night about a buyer remorse case that happened where they accepted an offer that's conditional on financing and inspection. Before accepting the offer, the buyer agent um, basically said that the buyer has owns their house mortgage free. There's no debt. There's going to be no issues with financing. Really, we only have to worry about a home inspection. Then the listing agent gets an email at 1 in the morning with a mutual release, and the home inspection wasn't even booked. So right away, she calls the agent when she wakes up first thing in the morning. What happened? Oh, buyer was talking to his next door neighbor. His next door neighbor told him it's a really bad time to buy. They got cold feet. We're sending you the mutual release. Well, wait a minute. That's not acting in good faith. You know that, and you gave us a $50,000 deposit. You're not acting in good faith. Buyer remorse isn't a reason for you to cancel an APS. It is on the new sale because there's a 10-day cooling off period, but it's not on the residential side. So it's difficult out there, and I'm glad you brought up the point that, the builder needed to write 60 deals, slash their prices to get 12, 20 deals done because we're seeing that spill over into the residential side right now in a big way.
Yeah. The buyer remorse, and I know David is the expert on this. David, I mean, you know, right after when Kathleen Wynne was our premier at this point, and she did the stump speech about an Ontario foreign investor tax. This was the first time we watched deals, and I think that was like 2016, 2017, something like that, where deals didn't close. Like people just were going to walk from the deal, and I found that a lot of real estate lawyers weren't ready for that. Like there was no real estate litigators at the time. Nobody was a real estate litigation lawyer. Then they became them, and now I think there's probably a 50-50 split. But where do we go with the buyer remorse strategy? Like you're the brains on this side. How do we help educate realtors to navigate that process, and when to kind of go, I'm a lawyer?
Well, if I had real brains, I'd be a litigator in real estate right now too, but I don't
Sorry
do.
about that.
We have a group of 4 or 5 real estate litigation lawyers that we refer to. Um, a few years ago, the list was 1 or 2, and it was the odd deal. Now, we had to look for the third and the fourth and the fifth because our clients can't get these guys retained. They're so busy. But fortunately, we found
Wow.
4 or 5 guys that are really good. But a real good result in litigation now, if you're a buyer trying to get out of it, is kiss the deposit goodbye. If I can get a release on the basis that I'm not getting my deposit back, but they're not going to sue me for damages, that's a win right now for a buyer. Okay, because the sellers certainly have the right not only to keep the deposit, but reserve their rights and go after them for further damages too. In this case that David was talking about, I haven't been officially retained, so I can't provide any official comment on it. But it's going to be up to the seller's appetite. They can hang on to that deposit and make it difficult, and I probably would for a period of time, and maybe you can just settle on deposit and keep some of it. But you don't really know how long is it going to take to resell that property. Maybe there will be serious damages. Was there another buyer that got that was defeated by this process and now has moved on to something else? Like there may have really been a lost opportunity to sell to a qualified buyer that would have honored their agreement. So, I think, sellers have to take a tough position these days, but a lot of sellers don't have the appetite. No, I just want to sell it. I don't want to be involved in litigation, and I'll give the deposit back. And that just encourages buyers to try and be remorseful, because you're like, there is no legal principle of buyer remorse. You sign a contract, you have to comply with the contract. That's the simple truth,
Yeah.
simple law, the way it is in Ontario.
And I would two things. One, I really do think realtors need to, when they're signing it, have that little come to Jesus conversation that says, "Hey, if we move forward, right, this is what happens if." We print a guide out, a trusted guide, and it's 13 pages at this point, might as well be 1,000 at this point, that says here's 10 ways to sell, to fire your realtor. And then on when signing a contract, we don't give them kind of saying, hey, if you decide to get a little funky in the middle of this process, this is what happens to your money. Because they just naturally think, as you said, David, I can walk away. This is like a return at Walmart. Simple.
Mhm.
The other side of it is to a buyer strategy. If I'm in the buyer in the market right now, I'm taking my buyer's $50,000 and I'm splitting it. What do you mean? Oh, I want $25,000 down with the offer. Sure enough, the seller's agent's going to go, wait, whoa, hang on, wait, we need 50 grand here. It's like, you're going to get it. When we waive condition, I'm going to give you the other 25. So I'm going to put a further sum. I'm going to have two pieces of my $50,000 deposit, two $25,000. And I'm doing it a little bit strategically for this reason. If for whatever reason, right, this becomes an issue where we have to kind of wrestle our deposit back, it'll be a lot easier to try to wrestle or lose 25 than it will be for 50. You're not saying you're not going to give 50. You're just going to break it in two pieces so that you have another 25 if you need to go buy another house somewhere. So if you're listening, realtors, this is, Ron's wisdom from the mount here. At this point, split the 50K into two.
Right.
One at the beginning and then one following condition removal. Sorry, David.
No, I think that's great. And if you're a seller who's been sitting on the market for 10 days, 30 days, whatever, and there isn't a lineup at the door to buy it, why wouldn't you accept that?
Yeah.
Right? What do you have to lose by accepting that? You take it, right? If as long as if you're getting the rest of the terms, you're getting the purchase price you're happy with, the timing of the closing, and whatever else. Like, why wouldn't you accept that? It's just, we have a whole bunch of realtors that grew up since 2018 in a market where you put out a sign and you get a bunch of offers in, and you're picking and choosing which offer to accept, and you don't, then you want unconditional offers, and you don't have to worry about all these things. You didn't have to work strategically the way you do now. There was a different strategy involved in, creating those multi offers, but it totally different. And anybody that's only been practicing in the last 7 years, they don't even know about that, right? So, or why
Yeah.
wouldn't the seller say, okay, I'll accept this offer. I'm not totally in love with it. You need some time, you need conditions. I want the right to continue to offer it to sell to somebody else in case I get lucky and somebody else comes along with a better offer, right? Uh,
Absolutely. I find that, the realtors that, 5, 10 years in the business at this point, many of them have never, sat at a table and negotiated a deal for a buyer or seller. And also what happens is that, because of the 3-day listings, David, that you referenced at this point, communication wasn't necessary, right? Communication, I spoke to you every day because we had it all done in 3. Then all of a
Right.
sudden now it's 33, 63, 93. And I'm hearing people, I'm like, when was the last time you spoke to your sellers? No, they've left messages for me. They've left messages for you. That means multiple messages, means that they're chasing you for updates. We have a problem. Houston, this is communication, right? And it's funny when I talk about communication, we talk about seller follow up on a more regulated basis, and even setting those expectations in the beginning. Then I flip the conversation. So everybody's like, no, I got it dialed in. Every 2 weeks we're yakking with our sellers and doing this kind of stuff. Excellent. I'm like, what about your buyers? And they're like, what do you mean the buyers? I'm like, where's the strategy meeting? Where's the weekly or bi-weekly strategy meeting with the buyer? Well, I don't do those. I'm like, how much money do you make selling somebody a house, like as a buyer versus a seller? Oh yeah, the same. So you give one a whole bunch of customer service for a fee, and another one for the same fee, no customer service. Who wants to be a buyer with you? Not me. I'm not getting all the full services that you can offer.
Yeah, and Ron, we know buyers are gold in this market. You know, everybody wants to be working with buyers. They're in the driver's seat. Boy, has the script flipped over the last couple of years. You know, before everybody wanted listings, and like you said, 3-day listings. You know, communication's great. Nobody wanted to work with buyers because it was tough. You know, sellers were holding their price high. You had to compete. You had to get creative to put deals together. You had to knock on doors. Now, you know, we have a record number of listings on the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. I think the most listings we've had in the history of the Toronto Real Estate Board. We have not a lot of sales happening. So that means that the listings are increasing and the list to sell ratio is decreasing. And it's a buyer's market out there. So now everybody wants to be in the buyer's seat and have a controlling say in what happens, right? So those two situations have completely flipped.
Well, I think if we did, a couple of situations, if I talk to buyers that have been actively working with their agent at this point, and I say, how many houses have you seen? Oh, we've seen a few. What's the number? They have no idea. You know who also doesn't know that number? Their agent, right? Like they really don't. It's like, did you jump on Broker Bay and did you book a bunch of appointments and have you been seeing these people pretty much every 3 days for the last 6 months? Yeah. How many houses? I have no idea. And you kind of go, okay, guys, there is a paradox in that of choice. And that's exactly what it's called, paradox of choice, right? When you give people, like if you have children, you understand exactly what I mean, right? What flavor popsicle? We only have orange. Okay, everybody gets orange,
Right,
right? We have every rainbow color under the sun. Now there's a fight.
right,
There's a fight. There's multiple choices. 6 kids, a box of popsicles, and we have a fight.
right.
How is that possible? It's the paradox of choice. They have too many choices, so guess what? They make none.
Mm,
And that's what's happening in our market right now is you keep drilling out. If you don't have a strategy conversation with your seller or with your buyer, pardon me, they're going to look at 50 houses. They could look at 50 on the weekend because, man, you're committed. You have a real buyer. You're just going to ring them out, wear them out at this point. And the challenge is that you don't realize by flooding them with just more and more and more, you're taking them further and further away from a decision. So again, this comes into the strategy, it comes into experience, the agents that, lived in markets where we had this once before. Guess what, kids? It's happened, before you, right? And, it was, David, you grew up at a time when real estate, you signed every one of the listings for 6 months because that was like our 30-day. Like it took us 6 months, it took us 3 just to get warmed up with our marketing, and then 3 more months just to get it to the table with an offer.
Right.
At this point, you built your whole strategy around the 6 months. And if you really wanted to, your renewal was another 6 months. You needed a full year to have the market catch up to you to be at the right place at the right time. So today's agent is kind of going, I don't know what to do. They have no tools. So I play field medic a lot as a coach because they kind of go, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say to my seller, so I'm hiding. And it's like, well, that's a problem because you
yeah.
won't have a listing shortly at this point because they're just going to drop. They're blaming all of the market on you. Guess what? You're the North Star. You go away, right? If
Well,
we look at how many, expiries there are, how many people at this point aren't relisting with that same agent, right? They're blaming the agent. They're blaming the agent for the full marketing situation. Too many listings, not enough buyers, not buyer confidence. It's your fault.
Ron, we got to have you back on for another session just on some positive tips and tricks for the agents. But I always learned so much from you. Like now, just from this session, like I've got a whole new strategy that I want to use with my grandkids. Um, I got to rethink what I'm not doing something right, but I got to rethink this. So, thank you for that because we have those exact discussions with popsicles. And it's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron,
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining, guys. Please drop us a comment, subscribe to the channel, and thanks so much for joining us. And Ron, we'll have you on next time where we dive in. What should agents be doing? You're going to give us tips and tricks of exactly how to tackle this market, eliminate the choice, and get deals done. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and Coach Ron, thanks so much for joining as well.
Well, thank you.